I thought the real heartbreak was catching my wife with my best friend. Turns out that was just the beginning. What followed nearly destroyed me, but it also showed me who I really was. Matt and I had been classmates since high school, and while we weren't exactly academic overachievers, we were far from lacking in smarts. As teenagers, we started talking more and quickly realized that neither of us was keen on racking up massive debt for a traditional college degree. Instead, we saw a different path, one that offered real potential. Skilled trades, especially plumbing, were in high demand. As luck would have it, Matt's uncle Steve was a seasoned plumber, and he was more than willing to take on a couple of eager apprentices. Steve had years of hands-on experience and a generous streak. He welcomed us into his world, patiently teaching us the craft and passing on the kind of knowledge you just don't get from textbooks. Thanks to his guidance, we had a chance to build real skills and earn an honest living, without stepping foot in a college lecture hall. Steve, already thinking ahead, had been smart with his savings and was planning to retire somewhere warm. Florida, to be exact, where the winters wouldn't aggravate his joints. Matt often talked about how one day he or maybe both of us could take over the family business and grow it into something even bigger. So we started from the bottom, earning minimum wage under Steve's watchful eye, learning everything from pipe fitting to customer service. But before we could make those dreams a reality, we had to face the chaos and curveballs that come with growing up. Our teenage years weren't just about plumbing and paychecks. They were full of lessons in life, love, and friendship. We figured out what made people stick around and what caused them to drift. It wasn't just about having a good time or showing up when it was easy. Real friendship, we learned, came from loyalty, from being the kind of people who stood by each other when it counted. At school we had a solid crew. We weren't the tallest or the flashiest, but we were athletic and had each other's backs. People quickly learned that if you messed with one of us, you were taking on the whole group. What made folks gravitate toward us wasn't fear, though. It was the way we could make each other laugh, the way we backed each other no matter what, and the way we stayed true to ourselves. We valued trust, honesty, and the kind of bond that's only built through shared struggles and experiences, the kind that only really comes from surviving adolescence together. We were more than just a group of friends, we were brothers in every way that counted. The kind of bond we shared, forged in loyalty and thickhead teenage bravado, felt like it would last a lifetime. One day that bond was sealed permanently. I'd gotten myself into a tight spot, 2 big football players had me cornered and things were turning ugly. Before I could even react, Matt charged in, fists flying. I jumped in too and together we took them down. After that, we were glued at the hip. When it came to girls, Matt had his own rhythm. He was a natural flirt, always with someone new on his arm. Me, I was different. My name's Jim and I found my person early on. Her name was Kate. I met her not long after graduation while picking up extra plumbing work through Uncle Steve. It was at some low-lit bar, just a casual night out, but the moment we started talking, something clicked. There was this ease between us, a spark. We talked for hours that night and not long after, we were spending nearly every moment together. It felt right and I was sure the future was ours to build. For a while things were great. But somewhere along the line Kate started to seem off. There was a sadness in her eyes that I couldn't explain, and no matter what I tried, dates, surprises, long talks, nothing seemed to fix it. Then out of nowhere she changed. Her smile came back and so did the warmth. Our intimacy, which had become dull and infrequent, suddenly reignited. Kate was vibrant, affectionate, full of life again. And yeah, I didn't complain. It felt like we were back to how things used to be, at least for a while. But then something shifted in me. Just a hunch at first, a faint uneasiness I couldn't shake. One afternoon I came home early. As I stepped through the front door I saw them, Kate and Matt. They weren't in bed, thankfully, but still, they were sitting at opposite ends of the couch and in between them was a box of tissues, at least 40 used ones littering the floor. Something about the scene just screamed guilt. Matt stood up to say something, but I didn't wait. My fist met his face before my brain had time to process. He hit the ground hard, bleeding from the nose and mouth. I looked at him, shaking, and said, "No need to explain. She's your problem now." Then I turned to Kate. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just told her to pack her things and leave. We didn't have kids and we'd kept our finances mostly separate, so the divorce itself wasn't messy. What made things harder was the business. Before Kate and I got married, she'd signed a prenup, an idea Matt had actually suggested, to protect the company in case things between us ever went south. Funny how that turned out. Matt and I had built that business together, and now he was tangled up in the worst way possible. I didn't care anymore. Appointments were missed, clients were frustrated, but I couldn't bring myself to face any of it. I was done. I just wanted out. The next morning my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Kate with her accusations, Matt with confused texts trying to explain. I didn't respond to either. I had nothing left to say. I didn't have the words. Not ones that felt strong enough anyway. So instead I just took a picture of my hand, with my middle finger raised high, and sent it to both Kate and Matt. It wasn't classy, sure. But it was honest. Raw. And at that point I didn't care about being polite. They torched everything I thought was real. Since that Saturday, Kate had gone radio silent. She must have known exactly how I felt by now, that I couldn't even look at her without feeling sick. Our marriage, whatever it used to be, was finished. But what cut deepest wasn't just that she cheated, it was the layers of it. The lies, the sneaking around, the acting like everything was fine while slipping behind my back with the guy I built a business with. She'd become a stranger to me, one I wanted nothing to do with. Fueled by hurt and a fair bit of rage, I updated my Facebook status with a message that was as sharp as it was public. I wrote, "Just so everyone knows, my marriage to Kate is officially over. Found out she's been having an affair with my business partner, Matt. Yep, the guy I trusted most outside of family. I've kicked her out and both of them are no longer part of my life. If you're friends with either of them, feel free to unfriend me now. I'm not here for fake loyalty." People reacted fast. Some sent private messages, some were shocked, others angry on my behalf. Word spread quickly. I wasn't looking for sympathy, I just needed people to know where I stood. The business, though, that was trickier. There was no easy way around it. I had clients to answer to, bills to pay, and my name still tied to a company that no longer felt like mine. I started looking for buyers, people interested in taking over what Matt and I had built. I was upfront with them too. If someone bought it, there was a chance they'd shut it down or bring in their own crew. Some of our guys might get job offers, but I couldn't promise anything. It tore me up to walk away like that, but I couldn't keep showing up every day and working side by side with someone who'd stab me in the back. I had debts to pay off and a life to rebuild, just not here. Eventually we ended up in a room together, Kate, me, and our lawyers. Kate could barely look at me, eyes darting around the room like a nervous kid caught lying. Her attorney rubbed me the wrong way from the jump. We shook hands and the first thing out of his mouth was, "All right, Jim, let's get this foolishness settled and get you two back on track." Like it was some sitcom misunderstanding instead of a full-blown betrayal. Meanwhile, Kate's dad, James, was a different story. When he walked in, I could see the pain on his face, like he was carrying the shame of his daughter's choices on his shoulders. He shook my hand and thanked me again and again for how I'd treated her, even in the end. I could tell he genuinely meant it. I shook his hand back, gave him a small nod, and told him Kate could swing by the next day at 5 p.m. to pick up her things. The next evening, right on time, the doorbell rang. I glanced out the window and saw her dad waiting in the car. Whether it was to spare her more awkwardness or because he knew I didn't want to see her, I'm not sure. But I respected the move. When Kate stepped inside, she didn't say much. I didn't offer a greeting. I just pointed to the neatly packed boxes stacked near the door. It was quiet, uncomfortable, but it was also final. That night, I stood in the empty living room, surrounded by silence. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a strange peace. Not because I wasn't hurting, I was. But because the storm had passed and now it was just me standing on the other side. Everything I said to her, I meant. I did want a family. More than anything, actually. But back then it just didn't feel like the right time. And then one night something happened that tipped the scale. Matt called me, just casually checking in. When I mentioned Kate was working late again, he sounded thrown off. "Really?" he said. "She hasn't had any late shifts lately." That hit me hard. My stomach turned. That's when the seed was planted. Was she even working late at all? Or had those nights just been cover for something, or someone else? From that point on, the doubt started to poison everything. The thought that maybe she was choosing to be somewhere else instead of with me, it broke me. I was already slipping into a kind of sadness I couldn't explain, and those thoughts pushed me even deeper. I started believing I could never stop loving her. But I was wrong. What I feel now, it isn't love. It's disgust. She repulses me. I can't even think about the time we spent together without this pit of anger twisting in my gut. The day she came to pick up the rest of her things, she was sobbing uncontrollably. I walked her to the door, but I didn't offer comfort. I couldn't. I looked at her father standing by the car. He saw my face, sad, resigned, and he nodded like he understood every bit of it. Then he stepped out, pulled Kate into a gentle hug, and whispered something that stuck with me. "Oh, Kate, what a mess you've made." He helped me load the last of her boxes, and then that chapter was closed. Later, Matt tried to call again. He said, "Okay, fine. I'll give you 200 grand for your share. But I didn't want to hear it. I hung up. Next thing I know, he's texting and calling nonstop. Jim, what the hell? I met your price. Why'd you hang up? I told him flat out, I already said Cooper made an offer. If you want this business, you'll have to beat it. Decide or I'm selling to him. Matt was getting desperate. Please, Jim. Just tell me what I need to do. I can't come up with any more money. 225, I said. That's the number. Take it or leave it. That was the last I said. I didn't want to hear his voice anymore. I was drained, mentally, physically, in every way a person can feel worn out. Even the antidepressants weren't helping anymore. They just dulled the edges. What I wanted deep down was something I knew I couldn't have anymore. I wanted the man I used to be, the husband who still believed in love, the guy who still believed in her. Kate sent a letter. It was her last plea, probably written with the help of her lawyer, though it still felt like her voice. She told the court that she had been deeply depressed when she cheated. That her head wasn't clear, her heart was confused. And now, after everything she said, she felt even lower. Life to her felt unbearable. I just want my husband's love again, she wrote. Without it, I feel completely lost. Please, Your Honor, let me show him how much he still means to me. Then came the final gut punch, one I didn't expect. Someone, I won't say who, told me the news. Kate was pregnant. And apparently her condition was serious. She hadn't been taking care of herself. The pregnancy was fragile and there was a real chance she might lose the baby, maybe even her own life. I didn't know how to feel. Still don't. All I know is that this mess, this avalanche of betrayal and heartbreak didn't just end with the affair. It kept unraveling. And now, I'm just a guy trying to figure out where to go from here. I could tell she wasn't doing well. She'd lost a lot of weight during the pregnancy, and even before things got critical, it was clear something wasn't right. Her father called me one night, voice heavy with worry. Jim, he said, I think it's coming to an end. She's asking to talk to you. When I got to the hospital, the scene shook me. Kate had been rushed into the emergency room, and when I finally saw her, she looked fragile. She was barely conscious, pale, disconnected from everything around her. I reached out, gently took her hand, and her eyes fluttered open just long enough for her to whisper, I'm sorry, Jim. I tried. I didn't know what to say. My heart was twisted in 100 directions. Grief, confusion, guilt, and something else I didn't know how to name. A doctor came over and asked who the next of kin was. Her father, James, answered and asked if the doctor could speak with both of us. The doctor explained that while the worst had passed, things were still critical. Kate and the baby were stable for now, but it could go either way. There was concern for Kate's health, and he warned us the baby might face complications, even if he made it full term. The next few days were rough. I stayed longer than I planned, longer than I told myself I should. I just couldn't leave. I needed to know how it would end. Then, by some miracle, things turned around. The doctors got ahead of the complications. The baby was born early, weighing just a bit over 2 kilos, tiny but strong. Shockingly strong. They told us he'd need close monitoring, but there was real hope. Kate slowly got better. She put on weight and bounced back in ways I didn't think were possible. Still, the worry lingered in her eyes, about what she'd done to herself, what this might mean for her future. I could see that weight on her shoulders, and I knew she carried more than just the physical scars. And then, I held my son for the first time. I never expected that moment to break me the way it did. My chest tightened, my breath caught. His eyes met mine, soft, searching, and strange. Familiar, even though I'd never seen them before. There was something there I couldn't explain. It wasn't just instinct, it was connection. Deep, magnetic. I smiled, but inside I was overwhelmed by doubt. Was this what she wanted all along? Was this baby the reason behind the lies? I didn't know. I still don't. But what I did know was that I needed to move forward. I needed to rebuild. Plumbing was all I'd ever really known. So I grabbed my old truck, the same one I used when Matt and I ran J&M Plumbing, and got to work. A buddy of mine helped me change the signage. We peeled off the old name and replaced it with something that felt like mine. Jim Wilson Plumbing. I took a leap of faith and put out a bold ad, one that made a few folks do a double take. It was aimed straight at Matt, loud and clear. Tired of waiting around for plumbers who forget where loyalty starts? Call Jim Wilson Plumbing, where trust means everything. I knew it was petty. I didn't care. After everything that had happened, I needed the world, and Matt, to know that I was still standing. That I wasn't going anywhere. I figured if Matt had a problem with my ad, he could try to sue me. Not that he could afford it, not unless he found a new business partner dumb enough to trust him. Let him try. I was done playing nice. Now becoming a single dad? That was never part of my plan. I mean, raising a baby on my own? Full-time? At this stage of life? Probably not what most people would call ideal. But then again, what choice did I really have? I had to be sure Kate could handle being a mother, mentally, emotionally, physically. I didn't trust her completely and I couldn't afford to. That meant more contact with her than I was comfortable with. And yeah, part of me hated it. Forgive and forget? Not in this lifetime. I've always been the kind of guy who stands firm once a line is crossed. But sometimes life throws you something so unexpected, it makes you second-guess everything. I watched her closely. She was still fragile mentally. I found myself reminding her about her medication, checking in when I didn't want to, even spending more time than I thought I could tolerate. And surprisingly, she began to change. The fog in her eyes lifted a little. A few kind words, a few gentle moments with our son, and she started to come back to life. People noticed. She'd been craving affection, starving for it even. Feeling like an outsider, like she didn't belong. Her self-worth had plummeted long before the affair, and I hadn't seen it. Or maybe I'd seen it but ignored it. That thought stung. It made me wonder, had I treated the woman I once loved like she didn't matter? Had I let her drown in silence without reaching out a hand? Meanwhile, James, her father, a man I'd come to deeply respect, was wearing himself thin trying to hold the whole family together. He never stopped trying to fix things even at the cost of his own health. I realized then, it was time I stepped up, not just for my son but for everyone involved. I made a decision. The next Saturday, I drove out to James and Martha's house earlier than usual. I needed a word with Kate, just the two of us, before facing the rest of the family with my usual calm mask. I had to make sure she understood my position clearly. Not as a husband, not even as a friend, but as the father of our child. We agreed to try something unorthodox. We moved in together again, but not as a couple. As co-parents. As two adults committed to raising their son under one roof, without romantic expectations. We lived in a kind of chosen celibacy. It was strange. Tense at times. But it worked. And raising my son? It became everything. Outside of work, every second of my life revolved around him. From the crack of dawn to the quiet hours of bedtime, I was his constant. And despite the tough pregnancy, he was a dream. Slept 8 to 9 hours a night. Gained weight like clockwork. Energetic, curious, always smiling. He started walking at 10 months. By 14 he was speaking a few small words. Watching him grow was like living out the dream I didn't know I still had. I hoped I wouldn't have to see Matt again for a very long time. I hoped the world was big enough to keep us on opposite ends forever. But life doesn't always respect the boundaries we set. That day came and I wasn't ready for it. I hadn't planned to run into him. Honestly, I thought I was safe. But the moment I stepped into the bar, I spotted Matt's reflection in the mirror behind the counter. Familiar, unavoidable. My chest tightened. My first instinct was to turn and walk right back out, but before I could move, he was already standing beside me. "Can I buy you a drink, stranger?" he said with this strained half-smile, holding out his hand like we were old friends. I stared at it, the same hand that had helped build our business, the same hand that betrayed me. The weight of everything came rushing back. "Get out of my sight, traitor," I muttered, low and sharp, barely able to look at him. "Come on, man," he said quietly, his voice laced with something like regret. "Leave it alone." But I didn't respond. I just gave him a long, bitter look. Then I turned and walked out without another word. That night, back at home, I whispered Kate's name as I stepped inside. No answer. The house was still quiet, too quiet. I tiptoed to her room and gently knocked, careful not to wake the baby. No response. With a knot of worry growing in my chest, I opened the door and found her curled up in bed, crying softly. She didn't say anything when I walked in, but her whole body trembled. She looked so small in that moment, so scared. I didn't say anything either. I just stripped down and slipped into bed beside her. She was already undressed, and I pulled her close, not out of desire, but out of a strange, complicated tenderness. I kissed her gently, and for a moment we lay there wrapped in silence. Two people broken in different ways trying to feel whole. That moment was quiet. Real. Confused. But it was us. There was a time back when I was younger when life felt simpler. My family used to gather at this old bungalow we had out in Schuylkill County, 160 acres of rolling land. Holidays, cookouts, lazy summer days. The Fullers had their place in Potter County, 640 acres where Chuck and the boys went hunting. They rarely used it for anything else, but I remember those places as symbols of stability, of life before things got complicated. Now, Life looked nothing like that. About 4 years ago things started to spiral. Gilbert Endeavors, where I used to work, collapsed. They made fitness equipment, had big plans, sprawling factories, and promised futures. And just like that, it all vanished. That's when I started hearing whispers again, about Kate, about parties I wasn't invited to. The Gilberts' New Year's bash, for example. Sarah barely looked me in the eye when she handed out invites, and I wasn't on the list. It hurt. Not because I cared about the party, but because I was no longer someone people thought to include. That shame, dealing with betrayal on your own, it sticks to you. You show up places and you feel it like a mark on your back everyone can see. That night, at a different get-together, I caught a group of people glancing my way, laughing under their breath. After a few minutes of that, I realized, my night was over. And maybe, in some deeper way, that version of my life was too. I put my glass down slowly. My hand was shaking. I don't know if it was the whiskey or what I saw. Across the room, through the crowd, there she was, Kate. And with her? Oh. His hands were on her lower back, and she was running her fingers through his hair like they hadn't a care in the world. Then, without a flicker of hesitation, she pulled him in and kissed him. Right there. Full-on, passionate, in the middle of the dance floor. Like I never existed. Everything went red. I didn't think. I didn't feel. I just moved. I crossed that floor in seconds, grabbed Al by the shoulder, spun him around, and drove my fist into his face. The pain shot through my hand, but I didn't care. It was worth it. He dropped hard, and the music didn't even stop. No one stepped in. Just a wave of silence before people started whispering. Then it got worse. 2 days later, my name, my face, was on the front page of the local paper. Local NFL hero saves woman and children from violent spouse at New Year's Eve party. The photo showed Terry Ulrich smiling like some savior while I was cast as the villain. According to the article, he had stepped in to protect a helpless woman from her abusive husband. Reality twisted into a tabloid fairy tale. Of course, none of that happened. Not like that. But I knew better than to fight public opinion. He was a hero now. And I was just the guy who snapped. After the news broke, I left. Within 48 hours, I was unpacking boxes in a cabin miles away from everything I once called home. It was small, rough, and way off the grid, just the way I wanted it. No neighbors. No power lines. No phone reception. Just me, the silence, and the snow. Chuck and his wife, June, dropped by the first weekend. Tried to bring some normal back into my life. It was good seeing them. Chuck stayed calm when Sarah showed up unannounced, frantic and furious about our joint bank account. She wanted answers. Wanted to know why the deposits had stopped and why she couldn't access funds. Chuck tried explaining it to her. Jim doesn't work for the company anymore, Sarah. He sold his shares. He's out. She left in tears. Not sure if they were for me, the money, or the truth. Weeks passed. The rhythm of life out there took over. I chopped wood. Cooked over a gas stove. Collected water from a well. No phone. No emails. Just snow and quiet. Olean, New York, where the closest Walmart sat, was 45 minutes away, and I only made the trip when I had to. Before winter hit, I stockpiled enough to last 4 months. I wasn't about to get caught in a storm just to buy toothpaste. Then came that Wednesday morning. I was out front, hauling in supplies, when I saw her. She stood just beyond the porch, bundled up in a thick coat, looking like she'd been walking for miles. Her face was half hidden by her scarf, but her eyes were uncertain, almost shy. "Hi," she said softly. I'm Claire. I know this is strange, but could we talk?" I stared at her for a moment, confused. Didn't know who she was, what she wanted, or how she even found me out here. But something about the way she said it, the tremble in her voice, the honesty in her eyes, made me pause. "All right," I said, setting the last box down. "Come on in." And just like that, a new chapter began, whether I was ready for it or not. I motioned for her to come inside and offered her a seat. "Coffee?" I asked. She nodded with a soft smile and pulled the crossbody strap of her bag over her head before easing down onto the old armchair by the fireplace. I told her my name was Skip, just a name I'd been using out here. No reason to explain everything right away. "I've been staying in the area about 2 weeks now," I said. "Spotted you nearby a few times, but never expected you to walk up my path." Claire smiled again, just slightly. "I wasn't sure you'd even answer the door." We talked for a while. At first, everything stayed friendly, safe. But there was something there, some quiet spark. What started as quiet evenings and long walks turned into a deeper connection. We eventually started spending nights together, trading back and forth between my cabin and hers, and eventually Highlands Lodge in Potter County, A high-end getaway that catered mostly to wealthy foreigners, including her visiting family from Cornwall. That place had everything: hot showers, more food than we could eat, even laundry service. But it was the air that got to me. Clean, cold, quiet. Being close to Claire out there felt different. Simple yet thrilling in a way I didn't know I needed. No noise. No past. Just us tucked away under trees and stars. Then everything came crashing back. Terry. We hadn't spoken since the mess at the bar, and I had no reason to believe we'd ever cross paths again. But life has a funny way of throwing you into collisions when you least expect them. I was outside the lodge one morning just finishing my coffee when I saw him. He was standing there, rigid, angry. He looked older than I remembered. He was shaking, trying to keep his balance as we locked eyes. I braced for a tirade. Braced for the explosion. But there was silence. Coffee? I offered, deadpan. You bastard, he snapped. I've spent over 10 grand tracking you down. You think I'm here for coffee? His voice cracked. His face went red. I'm watching you, you sneaky weasel. I saw it happen before I could even react. He was shaking too hard. The rage overtook him. His hand slipped. The gun he had clutched fell to the snow-covered ground. His knees gave out and he collapsed in front of me, breathing hard. He didn't speak after that. I called for help, kept my distance, and let the silence settle back in. Later I made one last call, to Chuck. Skip, what have you done now? He asked. Everywhere I turn, I'm hearing about Terry's meltdown. It's gone national. I don't know what you're talking about, I replied, though I probably sounded more amused than I should have. In the background I could hear June laughing. Well, Chuck said. Looks like Mr. Perfect finally tripped over his own ego. His reputation's in the gutter. It's almost hard to watch. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. But deep down I felt something close to peace. A few days later, Claire waved her new Canadian passport in my face with a big grin. Wait, we're in Canada now? I asked, caught off guard. Of course, silly, she said, as if it had always been the plan. 4 days later we landed in Nuuk, and not long after, we were driving up to her family's estate near Street Austell. The house, no, the mansion, rose up in front of us, grand and overwhelming. But the strangest thing was, I didn't feel out of place. I felt like I belonged. Claire's family welcomed me in a way I hadn't expected. Warm, open, was comfortable. The kind of comfort I hadn't felt in years. Maybe ever.